Hey, this is Brian. I'm out here with Millie, leave it, and she's a little bit of a firecracker. And so I have been doing some remote collar work with her, and somebody had asked me, had messaged me, and asked if I was going to be doing remote collar work with her, and I said absolutely yes. Now, to be clear, because she has some issues with biting, a lot of people would think that I'm going to be using the e-collar to address a biting issue. I already fixed the biting issue, in that regards. And if you watched any of the videos, I wasn't using an e-collar. So what's important is how do I mitigate, leave it, the biting, right? And so this is where an e-collar is invaluable for something like this case, in that, like, there's certain things that she's doing right now, like jumping on me. I want to disagree with that, so I'm giving her a leave it. So you can see, leave it. It's not so much that it's making her run away from me. I'm not blasting her on an e-collar. But again, what happens with a dog like this is that she can ramp up and get into this high state of excitement. And it happened to me the other day. She didn't bite me, but she was all ramped up, and she had a leash on, and I went down and just kind of touched her because I wanted to get the leash off, and she turned and had that, like, I'm gonna nail you look on her face. Well, because she's so ramped up that she becomes very hot to the touch, and because she has had that behavior, that that biting behavior, I think that there's some dogs that will have that propensity to go back to that if everything is in alignment, right? If all the stars are in alignment. So a dog that is super amped up and running around the house, and somebody wants to go and pick her up, and it startles her, then yeah, she could most likely turn and bite. Another good reason that I like using this tool, especially for a case like this, is that, well, in any case, just to be clear, when the e-collar is used the right way, right, it becomes the most consistent information for the dog when it's being used the right way. That's why the transitions from board and trains go much smoother, because we're sending the dog home with the knowledge of this tool, this information, and then we're teaching the owner this is how we're maintaining it with this tool, so there's no chances of it being misused, right? And then the goal is to wean the dog off of it, and that's usually up to the owner, and I guide them on how to do that. But for her case, so a good example is I had another client come by today to work with her dog, and I let Millie out, and immediately Millie started barking and kind of charging towards her. So some people would say, oh, you're going to use the e-collar to correct that. Wrong. What I did use the e-collar for was direction, right? So understanding that that person created a level of stress in Millie that wanted to make her go after it, to bite her, to make it go away, because that has worked for Millie. So we're reprogramming Millie that when something like that threatens her, you're kind of building a new neural pathway, and that if that threatens you, come away from it, right? So I have my recall. So every time she would bark and go towards her, I would recall her, and then she'd come back, and then I started sending her to place. Now she would start barking on place. Instead of correcting her on place, like with a leave it, I would bring her off the place with a let's go. I would bring her around the yard, kind of cycle her through, bring her back and set her on place. So it was just a matter of maybe 5 minutes of doing that, where then she was finally okay. And then as the client was leaving, this is very indicative of a dog that is insecure, is that when the client started leaving and walking away, Millie started to charge after and bark at her. That again was another recall. So the reason I prefer doing like a recall versus Millie, versus like a leave it, is because the dog is going into, when she's in that behavior that's a bit of a predatory behavior, moving out like that, but also it could be a territorial behavior, but what it stems from is an insecurity. And so I don't want to punish or correct that mental state, right? That insecure dog. What I want to do is teach that insecure dog how to come out of those scenarios that are causing her to go into that state where she wants to bite, right? And I found that I've done back and forth on this with dogs in the past, that if I just use a correction, I didn't find the behavior was as strong, the good behavior was as strong as if I did more of a direction. And the reason why that is because by recalling the dog out, I'm bringing them completely out of that prey drive or that defense, mode that they're in. I'm bringing them completely out of it back in the pack drive, right? But if I just correct and go leave it and pop it, I've seen the dogs kind of move off of something, but they're always kind of lingering on it. So to me, their brain hasn't completely come off of it. But if I recall them out, now I have the dog's full attention and I give them direction once again, either to place or just to move along. So Millie, so here's Miss Millie. So anyways, that's why, let's go. That's why we're doing remote collar work. Let's go. Millie, place. And as you can see, let's go. She is just fine and happy with it. Place. Millie, place. Down. Millie, down. We just got to an off-leash point, so now she's got something on her tail. Let's go. A leaf. We're just in an off-leash with her in the last couple days. Millie, sit. So watch, this is another thing too. I'll come a little closer. Let's go. Millie, sit. So this is another thing I want to correct with her, is that she'll try and roll over and flop on her back, and it's hard to see, but she's attempting to do it by this direction. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my hand on this side of her body. See, now she's shifting to the other side. So I'm just blocking her from rolling over, because again, and I'm petting her in the chest. Look, and I can lean over her. This would freak her out initially, where she would start barking and lunging. But the thing is, when they roll over like that, leave it. When they roll over like that on their back, it may seem cute, and it was probably rewarded down the road somewhere. But what happens is it puts the dog, leave it. It puts the dog in a very vulnerable position, and then all of a sudden they feel trapped when somebody's hands are coming in and petting them. And then what's their options? They can't really go into flight, so they leave it. So they go into a fight behavior in order to get out of that scenario. So I don't want her going into that rolling over on her back. So anyway, so again, just to clarify why we were using the remote, leave it, the remote collar with her. And it's, again, 95% of this is direction. So see, when I stop petting her, what she'll probably do is jump up, leave it. So what I'm going to do is just, this is what I call calibrating the dog to affection, right? Because people want to pet their dogs. So we're just going to show them how it's done. And a lot of times it changes the behavior in the dog. So if I stop, there will be a correction if she jumps up on me. But then right away, I'll give her a direction. Leave it. Sit. Good girl. Right? So if she jumps, correction, and then direction for the sit, and then the affection again. It's just a cycle. So the dog starts to learn, I get it. If I'm just calm here, I get affection. But if I try and push and get more, then there'll be the correction, and then there'll be the direction right after that. Right? So that's what I call recalibrating the dog to affection, or recalibrating the dog to the touch of the human, of the owner, so on and so forth. So anyways, a little update on Miss Millie. So we're going to carry on. Let's go. Place. Good girl. Let's go.